Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at Catholic Table Talk Podcast. This is a podcast where everything Catholic is on the table. If you have not already, like, subscribe, and share the show, please do. If you're new to the show, like I said, like, subscribe, and share it. And also go back and rewatch all the great shows that we have, 75 episodes and counting on all of our platforms. If you don't know which platforms we're on, scroll down to the description box and find the links to all of our platforms down there. Um, and today's episode will kind of dive into this too in a little bit, but it's really talking about kind of God's calling to be in ministry. Like me, for example, he called me to do the podcast. That's kind of my ministry. And today's guest, we're going to talk about his calling to be where he's at in his ministry today. So and so this is a great show topic, a great guest. And if you have any show or guest requests, please email them at catholictt@gmail.com, the official email of Catholic Table Talk. So let's dive into this week's guest. Over the past 20 plus years, he has motivating and inspiring youth and adults at countless diocese, parish, and school events across the country. He has spoken and led worship at the National Catholic Youth Conference, the National Conference on Catholic Youth Ministry, Catholic Heart Work Camp, and Steubenville Youth Conferences, which I was a part of, and I saw him there. And to name a few, his relevant message and crowd interaction can reach a teen all the way in the back row. And he has his call to ministry while he was serving as a camp counselor at Catholic summer camp during his college years. So with that being said, let's welcome in today's guest, Cooper Way. So Cooper, again, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm truly honored to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time today.
Oh, you're welcome, William. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. And thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I, just doing, I went back for the show prep. I went back and we watched the videos in 2018 and got to know your story a little bit, refresher about that. And I guess that's where we'll start is like, how did you know that God was calling you to be in ministry?
Great question. Yeah. So I that calling actually came a long time ago when I was just starting off. Like I was still in high school, and and then also moving into college. So grew up Catholic, very faithful Catholic family. Kind of like that's kind of like the typical thing that people say, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I actually went off to college and I started working, like you said in your intro of me, that I started working at a Catholic summer camp in East Texas. And so I spent the first, and I really just thought that was going to be a fun summer job for me. Paid to play with kids. Like what a better job than that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But what happened is I ended up so as this each summer rolled around, I started to get deeper and deeper into my faith. And I can't say that I was actually, while I was at the camp my freshman and sophomore year in college, I really had kind of fallen away from my faith in a lot of ways. As strange as that might sound. And so my junior year in college, I kind of got this reinvigoration of my faith, started to come back to the Catholic Church, started to get back into the sacraments again. And as I started to do that, then it became clear and clear of what God's call was for me. Um, I really thought I was a biology major, so I really thought that I was going to be initially like, I guess in today's world it would be like the Krat brothers, right? Where they
Right.
go out and they do go out and observe animals and do those things. And that's what I thought I was going to be. I thought I was going to be a wildlife biologist. I thought I was going to go out into nature and spend time in the woods, observing animals in their natural environment. I just thought that was so cool.
Right.
Um, and then as I started to grow closer to God, and grow deeper in my faith, that shifted for me. And the camp helped me to recognize that I had a gift for relating to young people, and that God was asking me to use that gift, and that to pursue a career in wildlife biology, which, as neat as it sounds, was not what He was calling me to do. So the closer I got to God, the more clear the His design and His plan for my life became. And so I ended up working at the camp all through college, all every summer, and then as I was about to leave college, I was thinking about, okay, what is my career choice going to be? Well, I still wasn't completely convinced yet that I was going to be a youth ministry. I thought, okay, well, I relate to young people really well, so maybe I can use my biology major, which I didn't want to be like, what did I do for 4 or 5 years at the university?
Right.
Maybe I can use my biology major to teach biology to middle schoolers. That was where I wanted to be. I wanted to teach middle school. I don't know why middle school, but it just was that thing for me. And because I think it was probably the age that I related to really well at camp. And so and God was like, yes, now you're getting closer. God was like, now we're in the right area. You're going to be relating to young people. But He was still calling me not to just be an educator of a subject, but really calling me into being an educator of the faith. And it became very, very clear as I was about to graduate from college, and the Lord was really putting it on my heart that I needed to go into youth ministry. And I had some, friends in ministry that were kind of helping me along and helping me to discern. But um, ultimately, that is where I felt the call. Is crazy, and my family, especially my dad, was like, "Why are you going to do this? You can't make a living doing youth ministry, and you can't." It's like all these obstacles. And even with someone who I respected so much and who I respected his opinion, and I still do, um, for him to not be on board with me was so strange, because
Right.
he had supported me all through my life in all aspects, in sports and in leadership and school programs and things like that. But for him to be at odds with me was like, wait, what's happening? But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had inside of me that God was really calling me to do more with what I had. And so even though my dad, you know, was saying to me, you can't make a living. What are you going to do for your living? And I'm like, I'm going to do youth ministry. He's like, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to support a family. And I was like, I don't care, because God is telling me, and I can't shake that. And so ultimately it was like the Heavenly Father won out from my earthly father. And so somewhat of a long story, but that's kind of where I got it, was just this wrestling with God and this discernment process that took years for me to finally realize. But that's where I got my first call.
Awesome. Well, that's a very cool story, I like that, Cooper. I'm probably one of my favorites I've ever heard. And it's really I guess personable. It's really relatable to, I think, a lot of people in high school, maybe or college ages, are kind of not really practicing, kind of falling away from the faith a little bit, not, going off down a different path, and maybe they come back to it. And just your story about, the calling that God was still, He was getting at you, getting the calling. That was the same for my podcast. After I got conformed, I was like, what now? I was a good Catholic still, but I think God called me to be the podcast, so I related to that, like you said. So it's
Yeah.
a really relatable story. And like um, like you said at Steubenville in 2018 for the men's boys group that we had talk. You said finding God's plan is a lifelong journey. It's not just a 1 day event, or a week long event. It's a lifelong journey. So
Yes.
yeah. So I guess going to the next question. I mean, you said middle school is like your favorite, or not your favorite, but you really connect with them a lot. And which, by the way, you connect with high schoolers too. Just
Okay.
saying, from 2018.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
so being I guess tell us about being a middle school ministry director, And, was it easy? Was it harder than you thought? Was it, how did that impact your life at that stage in your life?
Yeah. So the funny thing is like I was prior to so the journey that I talked about up to the point of knowing that I was going to go into youth ministry, idealistically it would have put me on a path of going into parish youth ministry and then diocesan youth ministry and then whatever. And so what happened from there is uh, I went into diocesan ministry all the way for years, for 10 years, and then went on the road full time. I didn't even start my parish ministry, my stint in parish ministry until about 4 or 5 years ago. And so, yeah, this position came open at a local church with uh, in middle school ministry. And I was like, this is what I really feel like I'm being called to do this job with middle school ministry. And every time I tell people that I was and I'm not in it anymore, and we'll get into that in a second, I think. But but when the position came open, I became very, very excited because I feel like middle schoolers, as challenging as some people think that they are, and they are, I mean, they're going through a lot. I mean, the
Right.
difference between a sixth grader and an eighth grader is like light years,
Yeah.
um, there's so much that happens between sixth grade and eighth grade from the standpoint of spiritual development, from physical development, from emotional development, social development. I mean, there's so many things happening that I think people are like, oh gosh, I don't even want to deal with that.
Right. And you see in your case as well, don't you? Or that next step, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Right.
so and so just to but the one thing that I love about middle school and what made it easier as much with all of that stuff that's happening in their life, the thing that I love about middle school is that there's a desire and there's a hunger and there's still that willingness to be formed and to be fed, and they want to be fed. And a lot of times I think what I've discovered about middle schoolers, and I learned this way back when I was at the camp, was that we don't a lot of people don't give middle schoolers enough credit for where they can rise to. You know, um, we they it feels like they're kind of in this weird spot. And so it's like, well, we don't want to treat them like middle schoolers, but they're not high schoolers yet, but they want to be treated like high schoolers. And so what I found was that, man, I'm not going to dumb down my message to these middle schoolers. I'm going to and so spiritually I was able to like really really push them. But the other part that was really fun was the fact that they still love to play and they still love to just hang out, and they're still goofy, and I'm kind of a goofy guy too, so it was like a perfect match. um and so when all that came down, I think maybe the most challenging part with being a middle school ministry coordinator was trying to strike that balance between wanting to just give them everything from a spiritual standpoint that I know that they could handle, and still balancing that out with, hey, we just still need to hang out too, like we need to
Right.
find opportunities to just build community. But at the same time, it's building the community that gets you to listen, and then I want to give you some good stuff at the same time.
Right. I totally agree. Just from being at the parish youth nights. They are they still they still hang out. They still goofy, but they're still in that stage where they're not high school yet, but they're still. It's really I guess I'm struggling to find the right word for it, but it's really maybe maybe a gift or something, like you said, because they're really eagerly wanting to learn more.
Mhm.
So which is great. So yeah, so well said. Um, so next question, I guess, would be like, so you got God's calling. You eventually go to the middle school ministry director. Um, and now explain the transition from middle school to the college Newman ministry director.
Right. Yeah. So now I'm working for a ministry called Newman Ministry. Some people know it as Newman Connection, but our whole mission and our whole goal is to help high school seniors to bridge the gap, Catholic high school seniors to bridge the gap to their college experience. And so what we want to do is we want to help these seniors to connect with their campus ministry program wherever it is that they end up going to college. And so we get their contact information, we get their name, their contact information, and we share that with their respective campus, whichever one they're going to, and saying, hey, this person's coming to your campus. They were in youth ministry or they were in campus ministry at their high school, and we just wanted to share this name with you so that you can reach out and touch base with them and make contact with them. And because, as we know, I mean, even if, and this was near and dear to my heart, because even in my own experience of going off to college was I fell away because that bridge was not there for me. And so thankfully, thank the Lord that I was able to come back. But a lot of people go from being perhaps involved in a little bit of their faith in high school, and then they completely lose their faith once they go off to college. There is no connection from that point. And so that's our job. That's our mission. And our goal is to do that. Now, that's the high school side of Newman. And so my job is actually on the college side, and specifically working with campus ministers to help support their ministry, to help support them, to help provide coaching and any other resources that we can to help them to have effective campus ministry programs, so that when we do say, hey, when we do bridge the gap, we want to make sure that we're bridging the gap to something that's effective and good and that a college freshman is going to want to be a part of. So the transition came where God was calling me away from middle school ministry and calling me into this new place of into doing a different part of ministry and with a different community with a different focus. But again, something that's still I was very passionate about. So when I saw this position and their mission that Newman has, I was just blown away. I was like, this is something that's personal. And that's what I find, that I have operated in ministry from a standpoint of because there was something missing in my own life at a particular age, I want to help fill that gap now. So, I mean, part of the reason why I got into youth ministry and felt so passionate about youth ministry is because I didn't have youth ministry when I was in high school or middle school. We didn't have youth ministry at my parish. And so I wanted to help young people to grow deeper in their faith at a time whenever I didn't have a whole lot of people helping me to grow in my faith and weren't coming alongside me. And so I think the same thing happened when I saw this position, when this position was available with Newman, is that I wanted to help young people to have an experience that's different from mine that I had when I graduated from high school. So yeah, it's definitely personal. And I think that helps from the standpoint that it doesn't make it it's not just a job, which ministry can become just a job
Yeah.
for some. And so for it to be personal and going, okay, my goal is to do something and provide a service for someone that I did not have myself.
Gotcha. Well, that explains that you help out the next person in line, and that's really good. Just one quick question on that, there,
Yeah.
Cooper. For reaching out to the universities, is that like any university throughout the country that they choose? Is that just Catholic universities?
Yeah, it's a great follow-up. Yeah, it's any university that is in our system that it doesn't have to be a Catholic. A Catholic university, they just would have a Catholic campus ministry program of some sort. And
Okay.
so we work with everybody that between like the smaller university or the smaller college that might have a volunteer campus minister at the Catholic chapel that a priest might come to once a week just to say mass, all the way up to we're building relationships with St. Mary's at Texas A&M and Virginia Tech and these larger colleges and University of Illinois, some of these college campuses that have massive campus ministry programs, and really in some ways have a lot to teach us as an organization, but we are working with them as well. So it's everybody in between. As long
Awesome.
as there is a as long as there is a Catholic presence on that campus in some form or fashion, um, and we know that through our system, then we can help to push a young person who might be going to that school into that organization.
Awesome. Well, I did not know about that, so thank you for doing that. I think I think you're a good guy to have in that position. I mean, yeah, so that's great information for anyone who has um college kids in Texas, or maybe try to start one up at your Paris Newman. Yeah, it's building up. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and like I said, it's a national. We're a national reach, so
all right.
we're all over the United States. So yeah, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in to make sure that that the audience realizes that this is something that we not just local to where we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you for throwing that in, and go ahead and interrupt me if I need be, because that's great information. So,
Yeah, sorry about that.
no, that's fine. Um, so I guess the next question was, being a leader. But that's what you kind of talked about. Is there any other things that you do, being a leader at your core position?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on a team with our organization, and so we have everybody from the high school outreach side to our tech team to marketing and stuff like that. So and development. So we sit on a team of about 5 or 6 of us, and then we report to to our CEO, and and the great thing about it is the fact that even though my job doesn't specifically involve the high school outreach aspect of it. The really neat thing is that because of my relationships with um, parish youth ministry programs throughout the country and my experience with Steubenville conferences, and like you said in the bio, like a part of my ministry has been traveling as a retreat facilitator, as a speaker, as a musician. So I've got relationships with a lot of diocesan directors in high school ministry across the country, a lot of relationships with parish youth ministry and parish youth ministers. And so to be able to kind of bring in a little bit of that and to work with our high school outreach and go, hey, have you guys tried this? And like, oh, no, that sounds really great. Who do you know and what do you know? And so to be able to provide some of that expertise that's outside necessarily the scope of my job description has been great, and it's been well received. And so just to be able to work with a team that is so open to just continuing to move forward. And that's what's so great about working with Newman Ministry is the fact that we do just have a great culture of team, and it's not a, well, Cooper, you just stay in the college area, okay, and let us handle our high school area. It's very much like we mesh well, and so it's been a great organization to work for.
That's really good. And I just have a pop-up question,
Yeah.
just because I'm going to college for business management. So when you say marketing and when you say working as a team, I totally get and love all that stuff. So and we have meetings and we report to the CEO. So like when I guess and you have to share anything that you can't share anything. But when like how often do you have meetings, report to the CEO? Is there busier times of the year than certain times of the year? Just kind of the meeting every day, or of the meeting standpoint, how busy does or can it get?
Yeah, it can get busy. One of the unique things about Newman Ministry is that because we're a national organization, our team is spread out throughout the United States, and so
Right.
we don't have like a home office necessarily. In some ways we do, but we work remotely, and so each day we do what's called a stand up. And so it's 15 minutes of just kind of touching base with our leadership team, with our CEO, and letting him know kind of what we're working on for that particular day. And then once a week, we have a longer, more detailed meeting that kind of goes through our what are our goals, what's on our to-do list, what are the rocks that we're trying to get done. And so that's a weekly meeting for about an hour and a half, where we just kind of continue to kind of flesh out some of those bigger things that we're doing from day to day and from week to week. Um, and uh, and recently, of course, I'm new to this organization, but I'm kind of getting a feel for it. So our CEO works very much like a corporate CEO, is in that we work in 4 quarters. So like right now we're in the 4th quarter of our business year. So October, November, December, that's one of the a quarter of the year. And so at the beginning of, at the end of the 3rd quarter, the end right before October began, we got together and and fleshed out what we're going to be what are our goals for these next 3 months, and what we're looking for. And so to be able to have those points, those rocks that we're pushing for, so that by December 23rd, because we have the holidays, we want to go end a little bit sooner. By December 23rd, like I've got 3 major rocks that have multiple layers of to-dos underneath those, that me and my team, I have a team of people that work with me and under me in the programming area that we need to get done. And so I would say at the beginning of each quarter is kind of a little bit of a push. And then we also spent a couple of weeks ago 2 days on everything we want to get done for all of 2023. So we set these pretty big milestones, pretty big rocks, even bigger, in order to kind of get us geared up and going. So there was some intensity there on that aspect. And then in general, because of the way that the school year kind of happens on the college side, in the middle of the summer, we start ramping up as freshmen are starting to go back to school, as campus ministers are starting to get back into the swing of things. Like, we really ramp up our communication with our campus ministers and saying, how can we support you? Do you want to get into a small group? Do you need some coaching? Things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some busier times, and then there's also a pretty good stretch of just like, we're just going to be consistent.
Sure. Well, I know it's a pop-up question, so I appreciate that from
Not a problem.
Catholic side. Otherwise, just a business side of it. So I really appreciate that and find it really interesting. So, um, well, almost to the end here, Cooper. I always try to have the guests just kind of take over from here and throw out any last minute things that you didn't get to say, or if you want to say something else. Any last remarks on just your journey to being where you are right now in your ministry?
Yeah, I would say, as you talked about, you kind of referenced my talk that I gave at Steubenville for the men's session in 2018, that, the discernment of, I'm going to butcher this, even though it's my quote, but the discernment and the process, the lifelong, the discernment of where God is leading you is a lifelong process. And I think that certainly does apply to us when it comes to our vocation. So or what we're going to do with our life, like our work vocation,
Right.
not to be confused with our personal vocation of the priesthood, the religious life, or the married life. And but again, I think everything when it comes to discerning what God's plan is for a life and how God is going to work on us, I mean, just in my experience, the faster and faster that this world gets, and the faster and faster and the easier and easier it is to get answers, and the technology has moved us so forward in to where we don't have to wait a long time. The message and God still pretty much works at the same pace that God has always worked, right? And
Right.
so
Oh yeah.
as much as we desire, I mean, even when I was younger, I wanted answers quick from God. I wanted to know what God wanted for me to do with my life, and wanted to know. But the thing is that God doesn't work that way. And certainly we're not going to be getting the answers all the time. I mean, sometimes yes, but very seldom does that happen. Most
Right.
of the time it is a process, and that process is always about strengthening our relationship with God, strengthening our relationship with Jesus, and calling on the power of the Holy Spirit in order to help us to know what God's will is for our life. I think above and beyond everything, that primary relationship with God in Jesus through the Holy Spirit, like that is huge. And if we're focused on that, the rest of this stuff, our job, who we end up marrying, what we ended up doing with our life, all that stuff starts to just, that becomes secondary. But the focus is there on God first, and then those answers will come so much easier. When we try to do it the opposite way, we end up getting kind of frustrated, and we kind of make gods out of these things in our life. So that would be my encouragement to your audience, is just to recognize that, first and foremost, that relationship. And I know it sounds kind of easy, or simple. It's simple. It's not easy. It's simple.
Right.
It's a simple concept. Put God first. But it really is, when you do that, when we put our faith first, and we go to the sacraments, and we, just take our time to pray, and not just pray little, but really dive into prayer. I have found in my own life, with my family, with my wife, with my children, in my job, everything, it just becomes more clear, so much more clarity, if that primary focus is on God. So that would be my sending remarks would be that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I like that's a great way to end it. Wow, that was really great. And just touch up. I mean, yeah, if you don't have a relationship with God, then you're not going to find peace. You're not going to find comfort, and you're probably not going to have eternal life. So, yeah, have a relationship with God. Just thinking about 30 seconds here, Cooper. If someone was touched by your message today, where can people reach out to you, or maybe parishes, or um, maybe colleges book you at? Where can they reach out to you at?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing would be to go to my website, which is cooperray.com. So COOPERRAY.com. And there's a way to connect with me there. There's some videos, there's pictures, there's all kinds of things, and a lot of information. So to me, that's the easiest thing. So I don't know if that's something you can include on the, like below here, check,
Yep.
whatever notes. But yeah, if you put that there, that'd be great. And yeah, that would be the easiest way. Would love an opportunity if somebody wanted to bring me to their parish or their diocese or school. Um, Happy to do that.
Okay, I'll put the description. I'll put the link in the description. So everyone just scroll down to the description, and should be in there. So Cooper, thank you for your message. So glad that I finally got to meet you. Since we didn't meet at Steubenville a few years back, but thank you for just your discernment for doing ministry, and thank you for all that you do, and thank you for taking your time to come on the show today.
You're welcome, William. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, I hope to have you back on sometime. And
I'd be
that's
happy to do it.
awesome. That's Cooper Way one. So, like I said, scroll down to the lake and then click on it and message them if you were touched by this, or if you will book them. Um, just speaking on the spirits, really great talks he gives. So I highly recommend him. So that is all for this week, everyone. God bless you, and God willing, we'll see you next week, same time, same platform, right here on Catholic Table Talk Podcast, the podcast where everything Catholic is on the table.